I still remember the day I first met Sarah. She was bright, charming, with this easy laugh that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. We clicked fast, and before I knew it, I was planning our wedding. Everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. Life has a funny way of throwing punches when you least expect them. Things were smooth for a while. We had our moments of tension, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. She was the kind of woman everyone admired, beautiful, smart, ambitious. I was proud to be with her. We'd talk about the future, build our dreams together. But then little red flags started to poke through the surface, subtle enough to dismiss at first. She'd get oddly defensive when I asked about her past. Sometimes she'd get quiet, her eyes flickering away, and change the subject fast enough to give me whiplash. I brushed it off as nerves, or maybe she was just tired. But my gut was twisting. I told myself I was paranoid, that trust was everything. Still, something felt off. I remember catching her glancing at her phone more often, her fingers trembling as she texted. I'd ask who it was, and she'd brush me off with a smile. Just a friend, she'd say. But I knew better, those eyes told a different story. Then came the night I saw her with him. My brother, Jake. I didn't want to believe it. I'd seen them together once or twice, whispering in corners or exchanging quick glances, but I told myself it was nothing. Until that night. I came home early from work, something in my gut telling me to check the house. When I got close to our bedroom, I heard voices. My heart hammered in my chest, and I crept closer, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. That's when I saw her, my wife, tangled in sheets with Jake. Their bodies pressed together, a hot mess of limbs and lips. My stomach dropped out and everything around me blurred. I could see the sheet slipping off her shoulder, her hair messily spread across the pillow, her face flushed and open in a way I'd never seen before. I froze, just watching for a second. My mind was spinning. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that, with my own brother? I wanted to scream, to shout, but the words stuck in my throat. I felt my palms go slick, my skin crawl with heat and shock. I didn't move until they finished, then Jake hurried out, pulling on his shirt like he was escaping a trap. Sarah looked up at me, her face a mask of shock and shame. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. What the hell is this? I finally managed, voice rough and trembling. She looked like she'd been caught in a storm. Her eyes flickered with guilt and fear, like she was trying to find an excuse, a reason. But I saw right through it. I saw everything I needed to see. That moment, it's burned into my head. I remember the way her eyes darted, the silence that followed, and the sickening realization that my life was crumbling right there on the spot. She thought I'd never find out. She thought she could hide it, keep me in the dark while she played her game. She was wrong. Dead wrong. The thing is, I didn't say a word then. I just turned around and walked out of the house. My stomach clenched, my fists trembling. I needed space, time to breathe, to think. But I knew one thing, this wasn't just about cheating. It was about betrayal, about her thinking I was stupid enough to never see the truth. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without some consequences. And that's where I am now. Sitting here, trying to piece everything together in my mind, knowing I'm about to make her regret ever crossing that line. I've started planning my revenge, and honestly, I feel a strange sense of calm. I know exactly what I want to do, and I'm not turning back. The game on now. Would you like me to keep going? I spent the next few days like a ghost in my own house. Every time I saw her, I felt this cold, hollow sensation in my chest. Her face haunted me, how she looked when she realized I'd caught her. That mixture of guilt and panic. I'd never seen her like that, and it made me sick. But beneath all that, I also felt a surge of something else, something dark. A need for justice, a desire not just to leave her but to make her pay for what she did. I started watching her more closely. She went through her routine like nothing had changed, but I noticed the small things, how she'd avoid looking at me directly, how she'd brush past me faster, her eyes darting to her phone more often. I was pretty sure she was still hiding something, maybe trying to cover her tracks. I also did a bit of digging. It wasn't hard, she'd been careless. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she'd forget to hide it sometimes. One lazy afternoon, I managed to slip her phone out of her purse while she was in the shower. I didn't even hesitate. I scrolled through her messages, her photos, her emails. It was all there, proof of her affair, with texts and selfies that made me want to throw up. She even sent him flirty messages, no doubt trying to keep the affair alive. I felt my stomach tight, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. She thought she could keep this secret forever, but she was wrong. What truly set me off, though, was a picture she sent to him. A selfie of her in our bed, wearing that same damn asterisk shirt I bought her for our anniversary. It was taken just days before I found her out, and it was so blatantly intimate it made my blood boil. That was the moment I knew I had to take control. I had to plan my revenge, not just to hurt her but to make her suffer in a way she'd never forget. I didn't tell her I knew everything. Instead, I played it cool, acted like I was still the same guy she'd fallen for. But behind the scenes, I was mapping out my move. I started talking to a lawyer, quietly gathering every piece of proof I had. I knew I wanted to break everything clean, but I also wanted to leave her with a scar she'd carry forever. It wasn't just about ending the marriage. This was about making her realize what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. One evening, I confronted her directly. I told her I knew about the affair, showed her the messages, the photos. Her face went pale, her hands trembling as she tried to deny it. But I wasn't having any of it. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her she had exactly one chance to come clean. I wanted the truth, no matter how ugly. You lied to me from day one, I said. You thought you could get away with this. Well, not anymore. You're going to regret it. Her lips quivered and she finally broke down, sobbing and apologizing, but I didn't believe her, not anymore. That apology was empty and I knew I had to act fast. I told her I was done talking. It was time to execute my plan. I'd been discreet, but I'd also been meticulous. I knew what I needed to do. I had to make her feel the consequences of her betrayal. I started setting the stage, canceling meetings, calling in favors, preparing legal documents. I wasn't just planning to leave her. I wanted her to see that I was in control now, that I had the power to destroy her life if I chose to. I remember the feeling of cold steel in my hand as I printed out the papers, the sharp scent of ink lingering like a warning. I folded everything carefully, ready to serve her the biggest blow she'd ever get. I kept it simple, a divorce notice, a clean break, no drama, just facts. But underneath all of that there was something else, a promise to myself that I'd make her pay in a way she'd never forget. Waiting for the right moment was nerve-wracking. Every second felt like I was teetering on the edge of an abyss. But I knew I had to be patient. I had to let her feel safe, to think she was still in control so I could hit her where it hurt the most. The next day I handed her the papers. Her eyes widened, her face drained of color. She stammered, trying to deny it again. I just looked at her and said, "This is only the beginning." Her hands trembled as she signed the documents. I walked out of that house knowing I'd finally taken my power back, and I was already planning my next move. Next part. The day I handed her those papers, I felt a rush I hadn't felt in weeks. It was like finally ripping off a bandage that's been pulling at your skin for too long. She looked devastated, clutching the divorce notice as if it were a lifeline, but I saw through that. She was scared good. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I stayed quiet after she signed. No yelling, no shouting, just a cold, steady stare. I made sure she felt the weight of what was happening. Her eyes flickered with panic and regret, but I also knew she'd try to spin it to make it seem like I was overreacting. That's when I decided I needed to step things up. Not just to hurt her, but to make sure she knew I was serious. This wasn't just about ending the marriage. It was about sending a message. I started by removing her from my life. No texts, no calls, no explanations. I made a plan to cut her off financially, to make her understand that her actions had consequences. I contacted my lawyer and started the process of freezing her accounts, transferring the house into my name, and making sure she wouldn't get a penny more than she was entitled to. Every move was calculated. I wanted her to feel vulnerable, cornered, and exposed. But I didn't stop there. I also remembered the little things she'd said during our time together, things she'd thought were safe to say, playful jokes she'd made that now seemed cruelly ironic. I kept a mental tally, all those cracks in her armor. They became my ammunition. I knew her secrets, her vulnerabilities. I was going to use them. One night while she was out with friends, I found her laptop. I needed to see if she'd been hiding anything more. It took me less than 5 minutes to find what I was looking for, a folder full of flirtatious messages from her to him, more photos, even plans to meet up again. That was the moment I realized she'd been planning to keep this going, even after I found out. My stomach churned, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. She thought I'd never find out, that I'd just roll over. Wrong, dead wrong. So I started drafting my plan for the final blow. It wasn't just about the divorce anymore. It was about making her feel the pain of betrayal. I wanted her to see what she threw away, but I also knew I had to be smart. I'd learned a lot from lurking in the shadows these past few days, watching her try to keep her lies straight. The next morning, I sat her down, cold and steady. "You've been caught red-handed," I said, "and I don't want to hear any excuses. You thought you could get away with this, didn't you?" Her eyes welled with tears and she stammered something about regret and mistakes. I cut her off. "No, this isn't a mistake, it's who you are, and I'm done pretending I don't see it." I handed her the folder with all the evidence I'd collected. Her face went pale, she looked like she'd been punched. "You're serious," she whispered, voice trembling. I nodded. "This is over. And believe me, I've got a plan. You're going to regret ever crossing me." She begged, pleaded, promising she'd change, but I knew better. I'd seen her true face. She had no intention of stopping. That's when I revealed my plan, not just to divorce her, but to make her feel every ounce of pain she'd caused, without crossing any lines I couldn't come back from. I wanted her to remember this forever, to understand what betrayal really meant. I told her I'd be taking everything. The house, the savings, the car. I'd make sure she paid for her lies. I knew exactly how I was going to do it. I'd hire the right people, set the right traps. I'd make her regret ever thinking she could cheat and get away with it. I'd strip her of her comfort, her dignity, her happiness. Later that day, I started executing my plan. I moved money around, contacted a lawyer for the final papers, and began to prepare for the fallout. Every step felt satisfying, like I was finally reclaiming my life piece by piece. I could see her sinking, her confidence shattered. That's what I wanted. I wanted her to feel small, vulnerable, humiliated. She tried to reach out, to apologize again, but I shut her down every time. I wasn't interested in her tears or her false promises. I was interested in making her truly understand what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. This was just the beginning of her downfall, and I intended to see it through. I sat alone in my apartment that night, feeling the weight lift just a little. The revenge was brewing, and I could almost taste the payoff. She thought she was clever, that she could cheat me and get away, but she was dead wrong. Now I was in control, and I wasn't about to let go. Next part. The moment I handed her the evidence, I saw her collapse. Her hands shook as she clutched the folder, eyes wide with shock, but I knew this was just the start. She tried to deny everything, to cling to some shred of innocence, but I cut her off cold. "Look at this," I said, voice low and steady. "All the messages, the photos, everything you thought you could hide. You thought you could get away with this, didn't you?" She stammered, her face streaked with tears. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. It was just—" "Save it," I interrupted. "I've heard enough. You ruined what we had. I trusted you, and you threw it away for a few meaningless moments with my brother." My stomach clenched as I said it, but I forced myself to keep the calm. Inside, I felt a storm raging. Her eyes flickered with despair. "Please, I love you. I swear I didn't want it to go this far." "Love?" I scoffed. "That's not love, that's betrayal. And I'm done pretending. I don't see who you really are." I pressed a button on my phone, showing her the bank and legal documents I'd already prepared. "This is just the beginning. I'm taking everything." Her face crumpled further. "You're going to destroy me." "Exactly," I said flatly. "And you deserve it. You've been living a lie, and now it's time to pay." I saw her try to stand, her knees weak, trying to muster some strength, but I was already moving. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her thinking she was untouchable. I'd spent the last few days quietly orchestrating my revenge. I'd already started contacting lawyers, accountants, anyone who could help me strip her of the life she thought she could manipulate. I knew she'd try to stall, to plead, but I wasn't interested in her tears. I wanted her to feel what it was like to have everything ripped away, her reputation, her comfort, her false sense of control. "Don't even try," I told her, voice cold. "You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. And I will make sure you regret ever crossing me." She looked like she was about to crumble, but I needed her to understand this wasn't just about revenge. It was about the principle. She had to see that betrayal like this couldn't be swept under the rug. I was going to leave her with nothing, just the memory of how she threw away everything that mattered. Later that night, I went over all the steps I'd taken. I'd already contacted the lawyer, scheduled the divorce papers to be finalized, and started the process of freezing her accounts. I even set up a way to make sure she wouldn't get her hands on the house. It felt good, the power, the control. It was the only thing that kept me from falling apart. But I also knew I had to stay calm. I couldn't let her see how much this hurt. Instead, I stayed detached, cold, calculating. I watched her try to cling to hope, to ask for forgiveness, and I just shook my head. "You'll regret this," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're making a huge mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's my mistake to make, not yours." I turned away and left her crying on the floor, knowing I'd already won the mental game. I'd turned her world upside down. And that feeling, it was damn addictive. Now I just had to wait. The legal process was moving fast, and I knew her life was about to unravel completely. The best part, she still doesn't realize how deep I've gone. I've got her cornered, and she's about to learn what betrayal really costs. Want me to keep going? The days that followed were like a slow, deliberate trap closing. I stayed in the background, watching her scramble to pick up the pieces she'd shattered. Every time she reached out, I kept my distance, not giving her the satisfaction of a response. Instead, I focused on tying up loose ends, finalizing the divorce, transferring accounts, locking down the house. It was almost too easy, like I'd been planning this for months, even though it only took a few days. She was noticeably different, more frantic, more desperate. I saw her packing around the apartment, her face paler than usual, eyes darting like she was constantly looking over her shoulder. That's when I realized how much she'd underestimated me. She thought she could cheat and walk away unscathed, but I was about to make her pay in a way she'd never forget. One afternoon, she confronted me, her voice cracked, trembling with a mix of guilt and defiance. "Are you really going through with this just like that?" I looked at her, my jaw tight. "You knew what you were doing. I gave you a chance to come clean, but instead you lied and betrayed everything. It's over. I'm done pretending. You're about to lose everything. You should get used to it." She started crying then, clutching her face. "Please, I can fix this. I swear I'll do anything." I shook my head, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. "Fix what?" "The fact that you cheated on me with my own brother. Sorry, that ship sailed long ago." I paused, then added, "You're going to regret ever crossing me, believe that." Her sobs were loud, but I tuned them out. I'd already made up my mind. This wasn't just about ending the marriage. It was about making sure she felt it, every bit of pain, humiliation, and loss. I'd seen what she was capable of, and now it was my turn to show her what betrayal really cost. I'd been working on a few tricks, nothing illegal, just enough to make her life miserable. I'd hired a private investigator to dig up anything I could use against her, just to ensure I had leverage. I set up a few accidents that would make her paranoid, little things like mysterious calls, fake emails, and the threat of her secrets leaking. She'd never see it coming, and that was the edge I wanted. That night, I sat in my apartment, reviewing everything I'd planned. The legal documents, the financial moves, the psychological warfare. I was building an intricate web. I'd make sure she knew she'd lost more than just a marriage. She'd lost her reputation, her stability, her sense of safety, and I'd be the one pulling the strings. As I watched her from a distance, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and detachment. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a statement. She thought she was clever, that she could cheat and escape unscathed, but she just played right into my hands. I made a decision then. The final move was coming, and I needed her to be fully exposed before I executed it. I texted her a simple message: "Meet me at the park tomorrow. We need to talk." No explanation, no warning. Just enough to get her there, vulnerable and open. I wanted her to think I was willing to listen, but in reality I was setting the stage for her downfall. She showed up the next day, eyes red and swollen. When she saw me waiting, her face went pale again. "What do you want?" I looked at her, the coldness in my eyes matching the cold wind that brushed past us. "You know what I want. I want you to understand exactly what you've lost and to feel it. This is your last chance to come clean, to admit everything. Or else everything you've worked for will disappear fast. Her voice trembled. "Please don't do this." "Oh, I already am," I said softly with a bitter smile. "You should start preparing because I'm about to make sure you never forget what betrayal costs." I turned away, leaving her standing there, trembling in the cold. I knew I was close to the final blow, and I relished the thought. She wanted to think she could get away with it all, but I was about to show her what real consequences looked like. The ball was in motion, and I was ready to watch her crumble. Next part. The day I finally executed the last step of my plan, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Everything had been set in motion, the legal papers signed, the accounts frozen, her reputation on the line. I knew she thought she was done, that she'd escaped her own guilt. But I had one last move, and I was determined she'd never see it coming. Before I left her apartment that morning, I left a small envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a key piece of evidence, an anonymous letter with everything she tried to hide, proof of her deception, her lies, and her betrayal. It was a final display of control. I didn't want her to think she'd outsmarted me. I wanted her to know I was always one step ahead. She was still in bed when I returned to pick up the last of my things. She looked exhausted, hollowed out by the emotional toll. Her eyes darted to the envelope, then to me, tears brimming but unspoken. I handed her the key to the house. "This is yours," I said quietly. "You can keep it if you want to remember what you lost, or toss it in the trash. It doesn't matter anymore." Her trembling hands reached out, trembling as she clutched the key. "You're really doing this?" "I am, and I want you to understand this isn't just about ending a marriage. It's about sending a message. You betrayed me in every way possible, and now you're paying the price. Never forget what you did, because I sure won't." She looked at me, eyes filled with a mixture of regret, anger, and heartbreak. "You're better than this," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, I'm exactly what I need to be. You pushed me too far. I hope someday you realize that no matter how much you try to run, betrayal always catches up. Remember that." I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, clutching the key like it was her last hope of salvation. I could hear her muffled sobs as I closed the door behind me. That sound, more than anything, confirmed I'd done what I needed to end this chapter on my terms. Driving away, I felt a weight lift. I'd taken control of the shattered pieces of my life and built a new one from the ruins. I knew she'd never forget, never escape the truth of what she'd done. And honestly, that was the sweetest revenge of all. In the end, the lesson was clear. Betrayal might seem like a game until someone decides to turn the tables. I learned it the hard way, but I also learned how to win. And I'll never allow anyone to take me for a fool again. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, the only thing left is to rebuild, or walk away with your head held high. The next chapter is mine now, and she's left to pick up the pieces she threw away.